Hello, this is Gavin, and this is my friend Ty. As explained in the last video, Warhammer 40k is a very difficult game to get into. That's why for this video and the next video, we'll be showing how to play the game. Uh, it'll be split into two different parts because actually setting up the game and then playing the game can both take a long time to explain and can seem very complicated. So doing it this way will make sure that it's a little more digestible and easier to get a grasp on. Alright, so for this video, we will be talking about just how to set up the game. Obviously, that's the most important thing to this because it's setting up the game. So first things first is you and your opponent will want to decide what points limit you want. The usual ones are 1,000, 2,000, and 3,000, depending on the size of the game that you want. In this case, we'll be doing a 1,000-point game, as that is the smallest one and the easiest one to get a grasp on. And to explain points, each unit in the game has a points value assigned to it. When you're building your army, you cannot go over the agreed upon points limit. Once you get your points values figured out with your opponent, the next thing you do is create your army. Most people will only own one, maybe two armies. In this case, I'll be bringing my Chaos Space Marines.
I'll be bringing my Tyranids.
Each army has their own strengths and weaknesses. For example, my Chaos Space Marines, while they tend to be a bit more expensive to put on the table, they are tougher, they're better at close combat than a lot of other armies, and they have a lot more focus on their more elite units.
Well, some of my Tyranid units are very squishy. I can bring in a lot of them, and they are very cheap point-wise. They're very good for overwhelming my enemies.
When also making your army, you also want to take into consideration detachments. Detachments are kind of like sub-factions that will grant you additional abilities to add on to the ones you already have. Since the game has just entered a new edition, most armies will only have one detachment as of right now. However, the Tyranids have gotten their new detachments, so Ty has several to choose from. In my case, I will be taking Slaves to Darkness.
I will be taking Unending Swarm.
Typically, when you're building your army, you want to make it as well-rounded as possible. So in this case, I know it's a little hard to see on there. I am bringing a Chaos Lord, a unit of Chosen, 2 units of Chaos Cultists, 4 units of Legionnaires, a unit of Mauler Fiend, and a unit of Obliterators. I will let Ty here explain what he's bringing in his own army.
Okay, so what we got here is we got a unit of Raveners, a unit of Von Ryan's Leapers. On either side here we have 2 units of Termagants, a unit of Hormagaunts, 2 units of Warriors, a Psychophage, some Gene Stealers over here, 2 units of Rippers, and right here for our centerpiece we got the Winged Tyranid Prime.
When it comes to building your army, there are 4 restrictions that you have to keep in mind. The first one is that you cannot go over the points limit. That's already been discussed, so no need to really go into detail about that. The second one is that you must nominate one of your character models, because you will always need one character model in your army, as your warlord. This simply means that he's the leader and certain objectives revolve around him being the leader. Or her, whatever it is. The third restriction is that you can have no more than 3 of the same kind of unit, unless that unit has the battle line keyword. If it has that keyword, then you can instead put up to 6 of that same kind of unit in instead. The last restriction is that if a unit has the epic hero keyword, then you cannot put in another one of that same unit. Alright, once you have your armies created, following the restrictions that were mentioned before, the next thing you do is you create your mission and you set up your deployment zones. For the purpose of this game, since this is just going to be a simple training game, we're going to do a capture and hold mission. This is very simple. 4 objective markers, as you can see here, 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 and here. And the objective of the game is to just hold those objective markers. For each turn, you can hold an objective marker. You get 4 points. As for the deployment zones, these are marked here by the lines of dice that we've got going along each of the tables here. Those are just 12 inches from the edge of the mat. It's a very simple setup. And with the deployment zones, that is where you start your army. There are other rules that go with it, but they will not be involved in this game. The rules like that will be explained in later videos when they take effect. So the next thing you want to do is set up terrain, as we took the liberty of doing, because that can take a while depending on how much terrain you have. You don't have to set it up equally like we have here, but in what's a sign of good sportsmanship, most people will set it up to be as equal as possible. Different terrain features have different rules. However, as you can see here, we have probably the most basic ones being ruins, forests, which you can't see on the video, but we have 3 trees here representing a forest. And we have rocks. There is more terrain to go with it, but that will not be introduced as of right now. While terrain is necessary for the game, you can always purchase some, but it tends to be a much cheaper option to just make your own. Kind of like the rocks that we have here, which is just styrofoam cut up. The next step is determining who is going to be the attacker and who is going to be the defender. The main difference between the two is that the defender gets to deploy first. So, as you can see here, we have 2 dice. I'm the red, Ty is the blue. We are going to roll off, because that's how you determine it. Whoever has the higher roll gets to choose who gets to be what. So using our makeshift dice tray here, we're going to roll off and see who gets what. Alright, can't really see that on there.
It's a 3.
I rolled a 3, he rolled a 1. Therefore, I get to choose who is the attacker and who's the defender. In this case, I will choose to be the defender. Once you have the terrain set up, the next thing to do is to declare any of 3 things. The first thing is if you will be having a leader unit attached to a bodyguard unit. To describe that, there are some characters that have the keyword of leader. If it has that, then it has selected units that it can attach to, referred to as the bodyguard units. This means that unless your opponent has weapons or stuff that dictates otherwise, the bodyguard units will take the damage for the leader unit until the entire unit is destroyed. The leader can also provide buffs to their bodyguard unit. In this case, I will have one. It's going to be a Chaos Lord, as you can see here. He will be attaching to a unit of Chosen.
My Winged Tyranid Prime will be attaching to a unit of Hormagaunts.
The next thing you want to do is declare if you have any units going in transports. Some armies have things that can transport units. You want to declare that beforehand, but as of right now, neither of us have transports that we're bringing, so that is irrelevant. The last thing you want to do is declare if you're putting anyone in strategic reserves or deep strike, which shares very similar rules to strategic reserves. Basically, we'll talk about the deep strike because that is the most commonly used one. You can start your units in strategic reserves, and then at the start of the second turn, you are allowed to put them anywhere on the table as long as it is not within 9 inches of an enemy unit. I will not be having any units that can deep strike this turn. Even though my obliterators can, I will choose not to.
I will be putting my Raveners and Rippers in deep strike.
Alright, So now that we've got all that sorted out, the defender, who we determined was me, gets to deploy first. As you can see, I already have all my stuff deployed and ready to go, in which case it is now Ty's turn to deploy his army on his end.
Alright, so here on my side, I've got my Tyranids all set up. I've got my Psychophage, my Warriors, my Gene Stealers, etc. In Deep Strike right now, I've got my Raveners and I've got my Rippers, and they won't be able to join until turn 2.
Alright, for the final thing before the game starts, you want to roll off to see who goes first. So, same thing as before, whoever rolls highest gets to go first. I've got the red dice, he's got the blue dice. So we're going to roll off here and see who goes first. Let's hope that this can actually pick it up on the thing. Alright, I rolled a 6, Ty rolled a 5. That means I will be going first.
All right, and with all that, that's all that needs to be done to set up the game. It seems like a lot at first, but in practice, it really does not take all that long. And a lot of it can all be kind of conglomerated into one step. Next week, we will be showing how to play the game, and that should be a significantly shorter video because a couple phases are really just repeats of each other, just in different times. All right, and with that, that's the end of this video. Hope you guys all have a good day or night whenever you're watching.